Welcome back to the Milwaukee Show, and today we're talking about the Winnipeg Jets, and if they are frauds or not, regardless of what your opinion on them in this playoff run and whatever the grand scheme of the Winnipeg Jets, if this is a fraudulent team, if they're actually a really good team, regardless of anything you think, now what happens? Because after finishing second in the Central Division with 110 points, ending 52-24-6, finishing first in goals against this season where Connor Hellebuyck and I think Laurent Persois will be winning the Jennings Trophy for the least goals scored on them as a tandem. What happens now as they finish once again in the first round, winning game 1 and then losing 4 straight? What happens to this Winnipeg Jets team? So, question is, what happens? Because regardless of where they ended up in the standings, last year I think they finished in the first wild card? Was it the second wild card in the West? I don't remember. But then this year finishing second in the Central Division, right? Regardless of where they ended up in the standings, it's the same outcome this year and last year. And ever since their big go at it a couple years ago, they've been getting knocked out in the first round. I think they got knocked out in the first round against the Montreal Canadiens as well in the bubble year a couple seasons ago. So, after a couple of pretty bad knockouts of the season, right? Going into this year, I really did think that they were going to be doing some big sells, right? Because the question going this last offseason was if they were going to buy or sell. And things seemed to be that they were going to start selling, right? They thought they were going to rebrand the team. There was discussion that it was just going to be they're going to move forward with guys like Kyle Connor and Nikolai Ehlers as kind of being like the basis of the team, and then kind of sell out other guys, and that started to be triggered when it looked like they got when they got Pierre Luc Dubois. And things did not go in that course, because after trading away the nuisance that apparently is Dubois, they signed Connor Hellebuyck and Mark Scheifele to matching contracts for $8.5 million each for, I think it was 6 years, or I could be wrong. But yeah, they matching contracts, so it's like, oh, okay, so they are keeping the team around, I guess. So they're still going for it. And it was a smart decision, because after that, they were expected to be a mid to potentially contending team, or contending for a playoff spot team. But no one would have guessed that they would have been second in the Central Division. That was the tightest packed division in the NHL this season, with the Stars, the Jets, and the Avalanche just right there with each other the whole season. No one would have guessed that it was going to be boom, 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 like just so close, especially with the Jets of all teams. And they did it, with Mark Scheifele leading the team with 72 points and Connor Hellebuyck being a Vezina candidate. Probably going to win the Vezina because they were so good at stopping goals, right? But that's kind of where I want to look at it, right? Because looking at this season, right, what was the success of the regular season before the playoff unsuccess, right? The reason this team was so successful is that the trade to the Kings was a hugely beneficial one, with Gabriel Vilardi, Iafallo, and Kaliev being a great return, especially Vilardi and Iafallo. Those two guys were great depth players, great depth, going like back and forth, two-way guys that were very strong both ways, plus the padding with guys like Scheifele, Connor, Nikolai Ehlers on the team already, Perfetti having a good season, right? Just a multitude of players just having not great outstanding seasons, but just the great depth up front. But then the main success. Where does the main success stem from? Has to be the stingy defense and goaltending, right? Connor Hellebuyck, right? He is a great goaltender when he's given a smart defense in front of him, right? He is a brick wall. He is the most consistently brick wall goalie, but he isn't Vasilevsky tier. By that is when, and I say this in all my Winnipeg videos when I discuss this, right? But Connor Hellebuyck, right? When you watch those compilations on YouTube, right? You watch Canucks 27 or whatever that channel is. When you watch Gens 90 or just that, whatever, right? Whatever you watch those compilations of the biggest saves, right? You see Vasilevsky's reach behind, right? Now Bobrovsky's giant reach across to make the big save, right? You see all of those saves because those goaltenders are so clutch and they just make those big saves when they need it, right? Who do you never see on those clips, right? You see guys like Mike Smith even make appearances. You even see guys like especially like Marc-Andre Fleury. You see all these goaltenders that truly are these big clutch goalies who make these big outstanding saves. But you never, ever see Connor Hellebuyck on those. And my theory about that is Connor Hellebuyck is a very smart, just like, he doesn't make those big clutch saves. He is just the most like, boom, boom, boom. You know, like, he makes those like easy, smart saves all the time, right? But once things get tough, he seems to evaporate, and that is shown in these playoffs, right? Everyone like act surprised now, because when you look at it, this year against the Avalanche, and then last year against the not the Vegas Golden Knights, what that freaking hell, it was Vegas. What the hell am I talking about? Against the Vegas Golden Knights and even the Montreal Canadiens, right? He never puts up these big grand performances like Swayman's doing now, like Bobrovsky's doing now. He isn't that kind of goalie. He's the kind of goalie who, when the defenseman can keep guys to the outside, or even that once in a while a slot shot, he can be the guy to go like, oh, made the save, slot, glove save, right? But he isn't the guy to go like back, oh god, and make that big save, you know? You see him getting these goals scored against him on like these Connor Bedard shows, right? When Connor Bedard makes those, like the one where Hellebuyck was like just like sliding all the way outside the net and was like really funny to watch. Like, you see these goals happen, and Hellebuyck is never the guy to be like, oh god, and make that big, like drop the stick, make the big glove save. He never is that goalie, right? Hellebuyck just isn't that guy. And the defense is so stingy, because my basis of my argument here is that the Winnipeg Jets are built to be a very good 82-game regular season team, with the stingy defense of guys like Dylan DeMello and Brendan Dillon, Colin Miller, and then you get to guys like Morrissey and Pionk and got Sandberg. Like, these are very smart, stay-at-home, conservative defensemen who stay in the middle lane of the ice to keep guys from going on the inside, who play a smarter game, conservative, don't do anything too risky, don't make those big crazy saves, and or those big crazy plays. And they're smart, right? Especially Dylan and DeMello, right? And you see it in their playing times. They're the big 21 minutes, big 18 minutes on the ice, right? With Morrissey and whatnot. Like, the team is a very smart team. Where in an 82-game regular season, consistent game of just like, oh, pucks turn over in the offensive zone, back up, right? They aren't like a team like the Avalanche, where guys like Devon Toews are going to stick to the point, pinch, and try to make those big plays. Because if they mess up, guys like Devon Toews, guys like McCarr, they can recover, right? But they're also an onslaught type of team like the Avalanche. This team, the Jets, they are a much more conservative, like, oh, okay, pucks come back our this way, back up, right? Back the hell up and get back there. The issue is, once you get to the playoffs and you play against a team like the Avalanche over and over again, that team is going to solve you, and that team is going to outskate you. Because guys like Brendan Dillon and Dylan DeMello are fine defensemen, but they aren't the most skilled players like McCarr, right? Because a guy like McCarr, right, he's going to start, and he's one of the best defensemen ever, in my opinion. But once, like, that puck goes the other way, right, McCarr can turn, make that big turnaround, get the stick out there, try to make that play. He's going to get over two guys, right? But guys like Brendan Dillon, when they're on the ice a lot of the game, they're going to be worn down, because he's a big, strong body defenseman who can eat pucks, but he's not someone who's going to go out there, and he's not like a Pietrangelo where he's going to be able to slow down the other team, right? He is a very smart, stay-at-home defenseman, stay in front of the net. But once that skill and once that push comes to shove, he's going to be the guy who's attracted behind the net because he needs to do more. He needs to do more because he's not a Pietrangelo who can do 2,000 things at once and be such a smart defenseman, right? And it is these type of things that wear down this team, and that's what scares me for this next season, because their UFAs are Toffoli, Monahan, Dillon, DeMello, and Colin Miller, right? A handful of guys where guys like Toffoli, sure, was a acquisition later on in the season, but for guys like Sean Monahan, right, he was with the team almost half the season, like within 10 games of half the season, right? And that is the type of padding that this team like the Jets needed. That type of, that multiple layers of just like solid offense to keep putting out on the ice, and then the smart defense in the back stuff But once they get to the playoffs, this team is ruined. And I think it's because this team is relatively similar to the Toronto Maple Leafs, where they have a couple of really smart top guys up front, right? They have Scheifele, they have Connor, they have Nikolai Ehlers, they have some guys, Morrissey in the back end, right? They have these guys who can make some nice plays and play hard, but they're one note, right? Once you get past like those top guys, the defense isn't there, the goaltending isn't there for the playoffs, right? They are not a playoff built team, and that is their issue, right? It's like the Calgary Flames. They kept making it in year after year. They would win the Pacific Division. They'd go in, everyone think they're great, and then they get smoked by the Avalanche in the first round, and that's a wild card team. That's what happens with these Jets, is that they are not built for the playoffs. They are a great 82-game regular season where they have a couple of guys who they put on the ice, score the couple goals they need. They have a goaltender who will consistently make those nice saves, especially with a defense that is so just conservative and sit back. Like, they can survive that 82-game schedule. But next year, right, with only having, they are going to be able to re-sign their guys, right? They're going to have, I think my, basic estimation was, 13 million or 17, somewhere in the teens, right? They're going to have enough to re-sign DeMello and Dillon, even Colin Miller. But Sean Monahan, after his nice season, what is he going to want, right? Sean Monahan's going to want at least, I would assume, after his good year, to cash in on probably what might be his last contract, depending on how long it is. He's going to want at least another $6 million, right? You got to think. And Toffoli probably can't fit into the scheme of things. So, for me, sure, even if they can work it out and keep these guys on the team, they're just going to be running back the same team, the same squad, maybe with Toffoli and Monahan the whole season, sure, I'll give you that. But once they get to the playoffs again, it'll be the same team. They're going to run it back again as if things are going to change after proving that Hellebuck, guys like the defense at their core of defense they have right now, are not a playoff contending team. And for me, this team needs to just be washed. This team needs to be washed if they want to win. Because guys like Mark Scheifele, great. Guys like Kyle Connor, incredible, right? Those top guys, not the issue. The issue is not the depth of the forwards. The issue is the defense and goaltending, where they just don't have that guy. Guys like Hellebuck are not that playoff goaltender that is going to just consistently keep you playing in the run like a Swayman, right? He just isn't. And I don't know what they do about that. Because do they just trade a guy like Connor Hellebuck to a team like the New Jersey Devils, and the Devils send them back like Dawson Mercer and something else or something like that, like Mercer and Nemec? Is that going to change everything? I mean, Nemec would be a nice addition to the back end and maybe have more of a spark in the defense of a guy who can play both ways of the ice. But at the same time, then they're without, Brossoit. I would have personally went with Brossoit after his success that he had last year with the Vegas Golden Knights and the way he played against his team. I would have went with him because Hellebuck was not proving himself worthy. I would think at any of the games, because game 1, even though they won 7-6, 6 goals against, then game 2 was 5-something, then 4-1, then 5-something. It was just multiple goals where Hellebuck just was never in. It's not like Bobrovsky last night against the Boston Bruins. It's just bad goaltending where he wasn't there to keep it, to raise his team up. And he plays hard, right? Hellebuck is a good goalie. But with the defense that's in front of him, I think first I would do is shake up the defense, right? Guys like DeMello, guys like Dillon, even guys like Morrissey and Pionk, right? I would say they need to switch those guys out. I would much rather have on this team, instead of Josh Morrissey for the playoffs, a guy like Alec Martinez, or maybe not Martinez anymore, but you know what I mean, a smart, solid defenseman like a Chris Tanev, right? A Christopher Tanev would have been great for this Jets, and even though you wouldn't have thought that going into the playoffs, but that's what they need, is a guy who can eat the pucks, just keep eating them, but then they need another guy who can go the other way, like a Miro Heiskanen, and I know that on surface they have those players, but look at what teams that win have. They have Pietrangelo. They have Hedmans. They have these big 6'5", 6 foot whatever defensemen who are big that can shut down plays. And the Jets just don't really have that. And for me, just the current way this team is built, they're never going to win a Stanley Cup. It is just not going to happen. They need to shake up this team, and it's tough to do that because this team is a successful team. It is a good built team with good players. but it's just the current way they're built just does not spell they're going to go far in any playoff run unless a guy like Hellebuck really changes everything the way he plays. But other than that, the way this team is built and their performances over and over again suggests to me that the Jets in their current build are not going to win the Stanley Cup. It's just not going to happen. Next year they could win the Central Division. Next year they could end up in the last wild card spot, right? Or this team, and that's the thing too, is that this team is kind of unpredictable where they can end up. Because I could see next year they going into it and they just completely shift things around and end up a wild card team again, right? This team is up and down. This team isn't consistent. This team isn't built for the long run. And for me, I love the Jets. They're probably my top, well, they're definitely my top 3 favorite Canadian teams, but regardless, I love the Jets, right? They're one of my teams that I would actually cheer for, but there's just something about the way this team is built that just doesn't make them a playoff contender. It just isn't. Take a look at a team like the Sharks that went so far in the playoffs, so many year after year after year of doing it, right? What do they have? They had top guys like Logan Couture who shows up for the playoffs to get a bunch of goals in the back of the net. They had a guy like Martin Jones to be a smart goaltender in the back. But then they had Vlasic. They had Burns. They had I can't remember all the players freaking right now, but Brendan Dillons, right? They had the Brendan Dillons, right? They had these defensemen who could just go out on the ice and play good defense, right? And it's just this team, they just don't have that. Morrissey just isn't Brent Burns, you know? Dylan isn't Vlasic, you know, and it's just that after that after that. So yes, that's all I gotta say. Is the Jets right now, I would call them frauds. They are a team that can do really good in the regular season, but will never, ever do great in the playoffs in their current build. And even in the regular season, isn't for sure where they're gonna end up. So that is all I gotta say. So thank you for watching this. If you made it this far, please, I am begging you, please subscribe. Just do it, please. Anyways, thank you for watching this. Too sweet. Have an amazing day, and ta-ta for now.